Good morning, everyone. I'm Michael. I'm going to be your host for round about the next. It'll be somewhere in the region of 30 minutes to 45 minutes, depending on how many questions we get along the way. So hopefully you can stick around for the full session this morning. If you've never used filters and quick search, one of my favorite little features just adds a bit of flexibility to your reporting. So it's worth understanding it. So when you present it where you're running a report and you can't quite get what you're after, and that's where filters can come in. Right, a little bit of housekeeping just before we get started though on the topic. So as normal, you don't need a microphone for these sessions if you do have one. So if you're new to the sessions, if you've never come across this before, if you've maybe got a microphone, you've enabled it, you'll find it's just muted automatically. You don't need a microphone for these sessions. So you can't talk to us during the sessions, but you can submit your questions. Now, it is only myself on the session this morning, so do bear with me. If you submit any questions, I'll try my best to pick those up. Hopefully we've got plenty of time for that. To submit your questions or your comments as we go, all you need to do is click the little speech bubble icon, which is on the taskbar on the right. It'll expand the panel, and then you can start typing in that box in the bottom right hand corner. Remember to click send. I'm sure we all do that with emails, and if you use Microsoft Teams, you type up a message, get distracted, and you forget to click send and think, why haven't they answered my question? So remember to click send. That'll pop through on my other screen, and then I will try and pick those up as we're going. If anyone wants a copy of today's slides, you can do that via the handout option. Usual two options available. One is the full color version of the slides that we use, and the other is what we term the print-friendly version. So I know some of you do like to print them out, add your own notes. They're in no way meant to be comprehensive on how you use the filters and quick search option. If you want that information, you will find it available from our help center. Right, let's have a look at what we're going to be covering over the next half hour or so then. So a little bit of an introduction. We'll then get stuck into some demonstrations, looking at filters, using wildcards, the quick search option, and also I've tagged a little option onto the end that I think relates to this, and it's inactive records. You might prefer to use inactive records rather than filters. So it can just add to the flexibility. And then just at the end, we'll explain more about the additional support that's available, give you an idea of some of those webinars we've got coming up as well. Right, okay, so let's start with a little bit of an introduction. So as I mentioned just in the brief intro there, the idea of using filters, quick search, inactive records is to streamline the records that appear in your ledgers. So helping you to identify specific records so that you can work with the records you do want to see, or hide maybe you just want to get rid of the ones you don't want to see. So there may be certain customers, or for instance, or product records that you no longer want listed because they're just cluttering up your list. Maybe you haven't traded with them for a considerable amount of time. You haven't sold a particular product range for a certain amount of time, or just in general, you just want to see the recent information, such as your recent transactions, your recent invoices. So hiding that older information that you just don't need to see, but it'll be there in the background should you want it. Now, it's quick to build filters, and we'll see that during the session today. If you want to use your software as we're going, that's fine. We'll try and run through. So I'm going to try and run through some of the more commonly used examples, such as hiding zero balance accounts, only displaying recent records. But as I mentioned, it adds flexibility to reports. When I used to work on our support team many years ago, when we used to support the reporting side of the software, probably one of the most common questions was, or queries was, I want this report, but I don't have a way of filtering out certain information. I only want it to pick up certain records. And rather than go through highlighting the records that you want to include, sometimes it's a lot easier just to filter your records first so that you've only got certain records displayed, and then run the report. So it may be that when you run a report, it doesn't give you it's not included in the criteria, such as date ranges, etc. So what you do is you go back to the main ledger, you apply a a filter first so that you've got the records that you want the report based on. So it saves you maybe sending it to Excel and removing information, etc. There are wildcard options as well, which really gets into the depths of the advanced filtering. We will touch on that today. And as I mentioned, I've quickly tagged on a little bit about inactive records, which we're going to be covering as well, which is, well, I'll explain more when we get to that, but it's a way of hiding your older records as well. So those customers that you no longer trade with, maybe that have gone bust, maybe it's just businesses that just don't exist, or product records that you no longer need. Now, I've included Help Center links on some of the slides as well. This information should be really easy to find within the Help Center. I'll mention more about the Help Center a little bit later on as well. But let's get stuck into some demonstrations. I'm sure that's what you want to see. As I mentioned, if you've got your software available to you, helps if you've got more than one screen as well, so you can watch along and have your software open at the same time. Anyway, we're going to run through filters, wildcards, the quick search, and also inactive records, and that should fill in the time that we've allotted this morning. So we're going to start with filters, and I just want to show you some of the common filters first of all, and I'll show you how to build some of these in just a moment. So when we go into the likes of the customers area, you'll have that filters button, and the common ones, so things like customers, hiding customers that have a zero balance. Now, there's a couple of different options for that, such as you can do where the balance is greater than zero. But what that means, and that's something that's often overlooked, is that if they've got a negative balance, do you want that to show or not? Obviously, you're not going to go chasing customers that maybe you owe a refund to, or maybe you do just to want to tidy up your accounts. So the other option for filters is to include positives and negatives. So sometimes there's more than one way to crack the same nut. So you can do where balance is not equal to zero. And that means if they've got a positive or a negative, they would then be displayed on your list. Another one, show only recent transactions. So in your transactions screen, maybe you don't want transactions displayed that are prior to your financial year. You might find yourself just scrolling up and down. The beauty of a filter is that information is still available in the background, but when you access the likes of your transactions list, it doesn't display it by default because you've filtered it. So easy one there, where the date is greater than or equal to maybe the start of your current financial year, maybe the start of a previous financial year, but you can't specify any date on that type of thing. You might only want it to show certain transaction types. Entirely up to you. And obviously you can build filters as well. So what we can do in this example is we can show a specific transaction type. So this would be within the transactions window. So we're saying where the transaction type is equal to BP. So we're looking for bank payments only. So if we just left it at that, say we go to transactions, we'd only see the bank payment transactions, the BPs. But then we've got a date range on there as well. So we're looking for bank payments that is greater than or equal to the 1st of October 2022, but is also less than or equal to the 31st of October 2022. So we're looking for BP transactions in the month of October of 2022. So that's what essentially that would do for you. Now again, sometimes you can just run a report and you'd get the information you're after, but again, you can filter things beforehand and then run your reports. So again, that's a common one. Another common one, hide your older invoices. If you go into your invoices list, do you really need to see invoices from 5 years ago, 3 years ago, even your previous financial year? Do you need that to be listed? Do you just want your current ones only? Maybe you want to see only the ones that haven't been updated to the ledgers. Again, you could apply a filter for that. Right, anyway, let's switch across to my screen and we'll get stuck into some of those demos. So the first one we mentioned was hiding customers with a zero balance. So you can see on here, let's see if I've got any first of all. just be my luck. I've used a set of data where it just so happens I've got no zero balances. So we better just quickly we'll make this customer have a zero balance. So we'll do a customer receipt. What's that one? We'll just quickly pay in full everything that's there, just so that they have a zero balance. Actually, I've got a filter already on there. That's what it is. Right, I thought it didn't look right. I thought I'm usually more prepared than this. But anyway, that B2 customer does have a zero balance as well now. I've got some others, I've obviously flagged them as being inactive in the past. Right, so what we're going to do is we're going to pop into the filter option at the top here. It's always in the top left corner. So give it a click. I'm just going to clear it first of all, so we don't have any filter applied. And this is what you'll get when you first come into a filter window. It doesn't matter which screen you're in, it's going to look the same. So in the join, we set that to where? Field. Now we're in customers, so when we click on the drop down, if we just scroll through, you'll see we've got some of the aging periods. We've got things like the account name, account on hold status, account reference. So they are in alphabetical order. We've got the analysis fields, we've got some balance options, bank account information. And if we just continue scrolling through, we've got information based around dates, delivery address information. What else we got? But I'm sure you get the idea. There's email addresses, etc., etc. So they are all in alphabetical order. Have a good look through that. Generally, you'll be able to find what you're after. It's much easier than editing a report to achieve the same thing. So what we're after is balance. So we want to say where balance. So we can either scroll down, find it. Oh, my mouse is playing up today. So we'll use balance. And then we'll choose, let's start with is equal to. And then in the value, we're going to say 0. So what we're after, we're looking for records in this instance that have a 0 balance. Maybe they're the ones we're thinking, right? All right, do we need to get rid of these customers or not? Just cluttering up my lists. So if I click apply, click close, you'll see all of the customers that meet the conditions in that filter, they're listed. But generally you want to work the other way. So if we go back into filter, we're going to choose is not equal to 0. So we're looking for anything that has basically a balance other than 0. Now remember what I did say was you could do, a lot of people will choose is greater than 0. Now if we'll do that one first. So if we click apply for that one, click close, you'll see that all of the records that are listed have a balance. Now there aren't any here that have a negative balance. So if you do want to include that negative balance, that's when you need to tweak that filter to where balance is not equal to 0. So we want anything other than 0. That would include the negatives. So if we click apply, close, and I think I've only got one on this list, which is this one. So the negative balance, where they're in credit with us, that one is now listed. So it's a good way of filtering those records. Come back to customers a little bit later on. Next one, we're going to look at showing only recent transactions. And incidentally, I must mention at this point as well, that if you apply a filter, it's only going to impact on your lists that you're looking at. This is something that is user specific. If you go and log on another PC with your username, if you log into Sage, that will follow you around as well. So that sort of filter that you've got applied there, it is saved along with your data. So it's on the same data path. So it's not machine specific, it is username specific, that one. So it means if you want to filter your lists, it doesn't impact on your colleagues. Right, next one was show only recent transactions. So if we pop into the transactions screen, and you can see we've got some transactions. Well, actually, we've got that sales receipt that I've just literally entered. But let's say we wanted to get rid of everything prior to 2024. So we got some year-end transactions for 2023. So I'm thinking, right, well, actually, I might want to get rid of those. I want to hide them. I don't want to delete them. So I don't want to clear the audit trail to get rid of them. But I just want to hide them just to make my list a bit easier to scroll up and down. So if I wanted to do that one, we just click filter at the top. We do where, and we're looking for date. And we're going to say we're going to choose is greater than or equal to. Now we could choose is greater than, and I could do 31st of December 2023. Or if I want to specify the start of my month, I can just say it is greater than or equal to, and I'll do the 1st of the 1st, 2024. So pop that in, I'll click apply, and then what I'm left with are only the recent transactions. Now, if I want to hide deletions here as well, that's more maybe where you'd come into things like wildcards and things like that. So I've got extra options for that as well, but I just wanted to show you the date thing first of all. If you close out of that screen, so if you just press escape to close out, next time you go into it, that will still be applied. So I've still only got the recent transactions. I can, rather than go into the filter and reset it, I've just got this little filter button to switch it on and off essentially. So if I click it to remove the filter, it's back to transaction 1 all the way to my end. So we got some transactions for 2022. So that filter will just sit there in the background, and I can switch it on and off at any time. Right, now let's have a look at some more transactions. So the next one was to show only certain transactions for a specific period. So this is where we start getting onto multiple lines. So what we want to do is I'm going to go back into the filter option, still within transactions. I'm going to reset it, so I'm going to clear the form, and I'll start from scratch. So we'll go where. Now, next I want transaction type. Now, some of the common ones you will learn, so you'll not be endlessly scrolling up and down. Now, if you know what it is, rather than you scrolling up and down, if I press T, I know this one is called transaction type, the field that I want to filter on. So it'll jump down to the T's, and if I keep pressing T, it'll start scrolling through the ones beginning with T. Similar, if I go back to let's say a B, it'll start scrolling through those ones. So you've got the two options. A little bit easier sometimes, particularly if it begins with the likes of a T, just to press T and then access the drop down so you can find what you're after. So we're going to say where transaction type, I'm going to say is equal to, and it's got the various transaction types listed that you can have. We'll just use the very first one, so we'll do BP transactions, and we'll click apply, and then we'll click close. So what we can see in this case, we've got BP transactions only. Now we can see I've got some transactions dated in February 2023. So I've got this sort of batch of transactions here. Now let's say I only want to display the BP transactions that fall within that date range. So I'm going to build on the filter. So we've got where transaction type is equal to BP. And if I come down, and I'm going to say and or. Now in this case, we're going to choose and. Do be careful with this one, because sometimes choosing the wrong one, it can mean that you get some strange results. So what I'm looking for is I'm looking for BP transactions, and they must be listed only if they are dated. So I'll find date, and I'm going to choose is greater than or equal to. and I'll pop in the 1st of February 2023. Now at that stage, if I click apply, we're going to have BP transactions, and there should be nothing prior to the 1st of February 2023 listed. Now let's say I only want those February 2023 transactions, so I want to exclude everything from that point onwards essentially. So we'll go back to filter, we'll do a third line. Again, we're going to choose and. We're going to base it on date again, and this time we're going to choose is less than or equal to. So this is how we essentially do a date range in the filter. So it wasn't a leap year last year, was it? I think that was this year. So 20th of February 2023. Obviously, I've got the date picker option here, so I can confirm it wasn't a leap year last year. And then I just click apply. So what I'm now left with on that list is list of BP transactions that are dated within that date range I've specified. And the beauty of this is, let's say I wanted that list of transactions. I just want to send my information to Excel. Because I filter that list, if I now click send to Excel, it's only going to send across, which you can't see. If I drag my Excel back to the right screen so you can see it, you'll actually see the results. So we've only got the information that's listed. That's what gets sent to Excel. Similar for other areas as well. So if you imagine your customers, for instance, what you don't want to be doing is thinking, right, well, I only want to include these certain, say, these 30 customers on my certain customer report. You don't want to have to go down, going that one, that one, that one, that one, and that one, and selecting them each and every time. What you want to do is apply a filter that identifies those, and that's maybe somewhere where like the likes of the analysis fields would come in, so that you've got that something common entered in a certain field that you can filter on, so you only get that list of 20, 30 customers that you want, and then you run your report or send it to Excel. Final one I'll quickly demo for you today was, again, just similar to what we've already looked at with transactions. It's hiding your older invoices. So I think always the temptation with invoicing is to have, your very first invoice when you started using Sage all the way through to the current ones, have them all displayed. And sometimes you're endlessly scrolling up and down trying to find the ones that you're after. So again, filters quite useful within the invoicing area. And not only for just displaying, but sometimes it can help you to identify maybe processing errors. Maybe you forgot to update something to the ledgers, you haven't printed something, or you haven't emailed it. It just depends what you're after. So again, within the invoices and credits list, pop into filters, and we're just going to do where we're looking for dates. Now, sometimes it will be just say date. Sometimes it will say the likes of invoice date, for instance. I can't remember what this one was. So date wasn't there, so it must be invoice date. There it is. And I'm going to say is, again, I'll say is greater than or equal to. And we'll just specify the first day of the current financial year, which in my case begins January 2024. So I'll click apply, click close, and you can see of my 93 records in total, not many that one, but of my 93 records, 9 of them satisfy that filter, that criteria that we've entered. If you've got loads of filters, and some filters can be quite complex, what you can do when you're in the filter screen is you can do a save as. So I'll click save as, give it a name. I'll put my initials in, and I'll just put recent invoices. I'll just save that one. What it means is if I clear that, if I don't, I think, oh, what did I do to build that one again? What I can do is just click open at this point, it'll give me a list of the ones I'm after. So that one there, just click open and it fills it in for me. And obviously I can come in at any point and I can change the date if I wanted to. So maybe as I'm going through the financial year, maybe I only want the last 3 months of invoicing. So at the end of every month, I can come in, advance that date by a further month. Click apply, it filters your list again. So that's the basics of using filters. Now I'm going to go back to the slides for a moment because I want to mention wildcards. Now wildcards just add that little bit of extra flexibility. So this is the most advanced part of using filters. There are three what we term wildcards. There are three of them available. There's the asterisk, the $sign, and the question mark. Now the asterisk represents any number of valid characters, which would include spaces. But the position of using that is important. So I've got an example there. And the example is based on, let's say, postcode. So if I was looking for all postcodes that begin, that are based in the Northeast, for instance. So I could do NE, and then I could do an asterisk. So an asterisk being any number of valid characters. What it would look for, it would find those postcodes, if I was searching on address line 5 in the filter area, that begin NE, then anything after that. I could do it on the likes of maybe a phone number as well, which are generally regional as well. So I did like 0191 asterisk, it would find all of the Newcastle phone numbers. The second example there, just for that first option, the asterisk, is it says N asterisk 1. So what that would be looking for is something that begins with N and ends in 1. But anything in between, it could be nothing in between, it could be any different characters in there. It's a bit of an unusual search, that one, but again, it was just to really get that point across about positioning. The dollar symbol is used where you want it to search for specific text anywhere within the field that you're searching for. So in my case, it's mentioned the word bottle. So we're searching by products, for instance. If you do like, I don't know, let's say A4 or 11-inch type thing, and necessarily A4 wasn't always at the start of the description of a product, but it's contained somewhere within that. You could do $A4, and that would search, say, your products lists. It would search all those descriptions, identify the ones that say A4. So the example there is it would look for the word bottle anywhere within the field that you're searching on. The last one is the question mark. Now the question mark, very rarely use this one, but it is available, so I better tell you a little bit about it. The question mark represents a single character. Now positioning is important again with that one. So again, the two examples, we'd be looking for 4-1, then a question mark. In that example, it would be looking for 4-1, then another character, whether that's a digit or a letter, but it would only look for 1. The second example, it would be looking for 2 characters. So not very useful, that one, or not what I tend to find anyway, not very well used. It's normally, if anything, probably just the asterisk or the dollar. Let's have a quick look at those, just so I can show you what I mean by them. Sometimes hard to understand the concept of them without having a little play around with them. Remember, you can play with filters as well. So you can play around with them to your heart's content. You can switch them on and off, and it only affects your views. It's quite common, it used to be quite common, again, when I was on support, where people would say, well, I've created this customer, but my colleague can't see that. And it's because your colleague would have a different filter to yourself. So they've got a filter set up, maybe hiding zero balances. And because you've just created a customer, it's not at that point, it's not listed. So again, be careful with what you're filtering. Just a case of switching the filter off and having a go of it. Right. Anyway, back to the customers. So we can see in this instance, I've got it's hiding 0 balances at the moment. I'll knock that one off in a second. But let's say I'm looking for all telephone numbers that begin 0191. So what I can do, back into filters, I'll just clear that and we'll do where telephone. So I'll just press T and it'll jump down to the list of fields to the first one beginning with T, which just so happens to be telephone number. And I'm going to say is equal to, and I'll do 0191 and then an asterisk. If I click apply, click close, and you can see on the list of phone numbers, it's found all the ones that begin 0191. If I not want to knock that off and reset the list, just click on the little filter icon. I'm back to my list of my records there. So if you get a chance, have a little play around with that one. Sometimes that can be the crucial thing. Again, sometimes it's just a way of saying, well, I want all customers that have a balance, so we could do that one as well. So let's reset it. We'll do where balance is, we'll just do is greater than, and we'll say 0. So if I click apply, I've got all of my customers that have a balance. Now let's say I'm going to go and visit the customers. So let's say I'll send the boys round to collect some outstanding balances. I only want them to travel around Newcastle, for instance. So I'm looking for maybe the ones that have a 0191 telephone number. I could base it on postcode as well. So then we can go back to filters, go down to a second line, and I'm going to say and telephone number is equal to, we'll do 0191 asterisk. Click apply. What we've now got is only customers that have a balance whose phone number begins 0191. Obviously, you can do that for other fields. You can base it on text fields as well if you want to. But have a bit play of those wildcards. It adds even more flexibility to your filters, which adds even more flexibility to your reports. Good little example as well of when you might use the analysis fields. If I go into the defaults tab, and on the defaults tab within a customer record, you'll find these analysis fields. So you've got these sort of text boxes that you can use for whatever reason you want. So in this case, I've got customer type as my first one, and I've got trade. I think I've got, I can't remember what else I've got entered in that box now, but it means that I can flag certain customers. So if I want to see my trade customers only, and I think, right, well, just looking at my list, I don't know which ones those are. So I can go into the record, flag it by using the analysis fields. It's a great little video, a webinar recording on analysis fields as well. And then if I'm looking for those customers only, I can do where, and it should be called customer type, cust type, I think it was called on mine. So I'll just scroll down to it. I should have just pressed C, shouldn't I? Well, there it is. So cust type, and I'm going to say is equal to, and then I'll pop that in, trade. Click apply, and all of these customers here are the ones that are flagged as trade in that analysis 1 field. If I want to find the ones that aren't, just reverse the filter. I can say is not equal to. So I'll click apply, and these are the ones with something else. If I just go into that Fred Bryant account, into defaults, and you can see this time the customer type, I've got it set to public. But you can use those analysis fields for anything you like as well. Right, so that's filters. We've looked at wildcards as well. just giving you that extra little bit of demo there for the wildcards. You find loads of information about using them, the common filters, etc. within the Help Center. Any questions, please keep them coming. Being very quiet on the questions so far. Right, we're going to move on. Next, we're going to quickly look at Quick Search. Now, Quick Search, it's been around for a while now. It was extended recently in version 29 to other areas of the software. So we introduced it in things like customers and suppliers. And obviously when people see that and you think, well, I would like it in that area. So I think it was shoved into things like the invoices and order processing areas. So it just means you can quickly filter your lists. It means that you can search for specific text or values in multiple fields without having to use filters. And as I mentioned, it's available at the top of most ledgers. Now, if we go back to my desktop and we'll do a quick search, what I'll do is I'll pop into filter and clear that and click apply. And let's say I'm on the phone to a customer and I think, oh, I've asked their name twice now and I still don't know who they are, but I think they mentioned their name was like Fred, for instance. Rather than me search through that, I can just type some key information at the top. So Fred, right, and I click search and it searches the fields. Now it's not just searching the name or the contact, it will actually search everything on this screen as well, but also the information that's listed as well. So if we just knock that back off, so we'll just reset that. So if we go into this, what we're going to pick on, John Smith Studios, we can see in address line 4, it says Humberside for this customer. Now that information isn't displayed on the front screen, but if I type in there Humberside, click search, it'll do that search for you. It might find more than one result because it's not just searching a specific field. With filters, you choose what field you want it to search for, but the quick search is just hopefully a quick way of identifying those records for you. So that's the one. If I go into it, it says that as well. So as I say, you might get more than one result. So I'll just clear it. What else can I search for? Now again, let's just say I search for 0191. So a bit like what I did in the filters option earlier. But I'm just going to search for 0191. It'll look for those characters anywhere within those fields. So again, it automatically identifies that. But you might find, actually, I'll just knock that one off a moment. If I choose an account that doesn't have 0191 as the telephone number, so let's choose this business exhibitions, and if I put 0191 there in the street and just save it, and if I now go back and type 0191 at the top, it'll find that one in addition. So you might be looking at some of the results sometimes and think, well, why on earth's it found that one? So it's not just searching a specific field, it's basically anything that's listed plus everything on this list. I'll just knock that one back out. I'll save it. Let's close out of that one. So have a bit of play around with your quick search. It's in multiple areas. You'll find it on things like drop-down lists as well. So let's say you're in bank accounts. Let's say we're doing a bank payment. Let's say we get to the nominal code area and we think, oh, what's a nominal code for insurance? On the drop-down, just start typing, click search, and again, it narrows it down. I'm not endlessly scrolling up and down the list trying to find something. Remember, you can sort them in other orders as well if it helps. For nominal codes, you can put them in name order, for instance, just by clicking the column heading at the top. By default, you will find they're in numerical order. So then I could select the relevant one, and that's it. So if you're fairly new to the software, you maybe still learning. I've done it for 20 odd years now, and I still don't know all the nominal codes. There's loads of them. So that's quick search. Any questions on quick search at all? Again, it only applies to you as a user. It's not going to affect anyone else when they're looking at a certain screen. So available in most areas, not available within the bank accounts list. I don't think you'd find it very beneficial. It's not much there to search through, but customers, you've got it at the top here. Invoices and credits, again, you've got it at the top. Suppliers, it's at the top there. Products and services, it's at the top. Nominal codes, it's at the top. Transactions, it's at the top as well. You might be looking for a certain, maybe you're looking for a certain transaction with a certain value. Let's just knock the filter off. And let's say we're searching one which is 550. Does it find anything? Yeah. So it's found some transactions. So you'll see on this one, it's got a good example here where when it's searching multiple fields. We've got some in the net here. It's found the transactions that are 550. It's also found this transaction here, which £52, but actually it's transaction number 550, which is why it finds that one on the list as well. So a really good little feature, that one. And don't get caught out when you think something's missing. Is it a filter applied, or have you got a quick search applied? Final area I want to quickly cover with you in this morning's session is inactive records. Let's quickly pop back, tell you a little bit about it, and I'll show you a quick demo. So the idea of inactive records is that you can flag your old unused records and easily hide them here and there as well. So helping to, again, tidy your lists, make them a bit more manageable. So what we looked at earlier, where we filtered to hide the zero balance accounts, we might have new customers. It just so happens they've got a zero balance, or regular customers, they're paid up to date, they've got a zero balance. So maybe we want to still display those. So the ones that have a zero balance that we want to get rid of, maybe we don't want to delete them, but we just want to hide them, we can flag them as being inactive. Now, the inactive records option, it's available for customers, suppliers, nominal bank accounts, and also your products and services list as well. Now, to flag a record as being inactive, it must meet certain criteria. So on my slide, I've got the criteria mentioned for customers. So for instance, to be able to flag a customer as being inactive, it must have a zero balance. There must be nothing outstanding on the account. So for instance, if you've got an invoice and a credit note, they must be matched together. If they're not matched, they're flagged as outstanding essentially. It wouldn't allow you to flag that record as being inactive. Few other little bits and bobs of criteria which probably you're unlikely to come across. So it's generally for customers, zero balance and no unallocated transactions. The criteria for the relevant areas, you will find that all documented in the Help Center. Let me show you a quick example of this one. So we go into customers, you can see I've got some flagged as being inactive already. So this Fred Bryant account, it's got a Y there. Now you can flag your records individually. So all you would do is you would come into the relevant record, tick the box. I'll just unflag it first of all. So we'd select that one again, Fred Bryant, what's that one? We'll flag it as being inactive. So tick the box, click save. Now that puts a Y in this column. You can see I've got a few others flagged there as well. If you're on the standard or the professional level, what you can also do is you can use batch changes to basically select your records and say, right, I want to flag them all as being inactive, and it'll flag as many as it can. Any that don't meet the criteria will not be flagged. But with these flagged as being inactive, so obviously they have to have a zero balance. What it means is I've got this little checkbox. do I want to show those inactive records or not? I want to hide them. Take the tick out. Those ones that are flagged as being inactive are just hidden in the background. Now, let's say Fred Bryant comes back to me in the future. I've flagged them as being inactive. I didn't think he could be coming back. But let's say I want to use them again. I can do unflag him and reactivate him in a number of different ways. So I could switch on the list, find him, and literally take the tick out, save the record. He's no longer flagged as being inactive, and then any that are inactive, I'll take the tick out so I don't see them anymore. But Fred Bryant is now an active record on my list there at that point. So again, another great way, and a simple way, that one, of filtering your records, rather than use things like hiding zero balances. So you might have a legitimate reason for hiding zero balances for reporting, but others, I've seen it in the past where people have used it just to try and get rid of all the records, or people renaming records to like void account or something like that, and then applying a filter based on the name. But you've now got that inactive records feature. So great little feature, that one. Originally it was for customers, suppliers, and products and services, but loads of requests to extend that to the nominal area and also the bank accounts area as well. So get them flagged and you can show or hide them then at any time. Right, brings us to the end of the demos this morning. I hope you've enjoyed that and found it useful. And it's given you a little bit of insight. As I say, it's one of those types of questions we get all the time. I need to run a report, but actually it's including too much information. I need a new report. Rather than a new report or amending a report, can you apply a filter first of all? As I mentioned, when I worked many years ago on the report design team, more often than not, you just think, well, actually, if you apply a filter, you can then run the report and then you'll have exactly what you're after. So don't overlook that. Jenny, you mentioned there, can you sort of reactivate? You probably couldn't think of the word there either. Can you reactivate multiple records simultaneously? I'll pick that up in a minute, Jenny. If you just bear with me, I'll try and demo that one. Right, okay, so if you've got any questions though, if you want to pop them in there, remember, if you've got any questions, you just need to click the little speech bubble icon, give it a click, and then you'll be able to start typing in that box. Help Center, you can access that at any time in your software. Just press F1, or you'll find, if you're on an up-to-date version, you'll find the help option, the top right-hand corner of any window that you're in. That should bring up the help relating to whatever it is you're looking at. Alternatively, you can go to your browser, just type in sage.co.uk/help and start searching that way. Filters, wildcards, that information should be easy to find. To give you an idea of some of the upcoming webinars that we've got loads planned in for November, and December's now available. We're already starting to think about January, what we can run then. If you've got any thoughts, let us know. Pop it on the survey that pops up as you leave. Throughout November, things like invoice payments, bank feeds, year-end, company archives, filters, which is what we've run today, and also the VAT returns series as well, parts 1 to 3 now. But we are concentrating over the coming month or so on corrections. So we're looking at sort of common corrections and common queries relating to mistakes, etc., in different areas of the software. So customers and suppliers, picking up on journals. So if you make mistakes with journals, everyone does generally, it's very easy to correct them these days. We'll run through the options. VAT transactions. If you need to correct something, what impact does it have on the VAT return? Invoices and orders and stock. Those are 2 brand new options, or 2 new webinars, which I'll be running towards the end of this month. So if you work in that area, again, please get yourself signed up. These are available on the registration page already. Bank reconciliation and bank feeds, so correcting those, deleting transactions, what impact does it have? If you need to undo a reconciliation, how do you go about doing that? What what knock-on effect it has, and just bank transactions themselves. So bank payments, bank receipts, bank transfers. How do you go about correcting those if you've made a mistake? If you are interested, the links will be included on your follow-up email, which you will receive in around about an hour's time. Now, just before I come back to questions, we've got a couple that are outstanding there now. Great, we'll pick those up in just a moment. Let me thank you for coming along. I hope you've enjoyed it, giving you some little bit of food for thought. Have a play around with it. If you've got any questions, just drop me an email, reply to any of the webinar emails, and it'll come direct to myself. There'll be a little survey pop up as you leave the session today. So if you can take a minute to complete that, really appreciate it. If you've got any thoughts, ideas that you want to share with us, topics that you'd like to see covered, pop it on there. But if you can take a minute, that's all we ask. If you can take that minute to complete that survey, that would be great. Your follow-up email with the links to register for the upcoming webinars, including all those correction series, that will be with you in around about an hour's time. There'll be a link to watch all of our previous recordings, and there will be a link to today's recording as well. So you get that about an hour's time. Right, okay, so let me quickly pop back to the questions that we had. So the first one that we had was from Jenny. Jenny was just asking, can you reactivate multiple records at the same time? So if I show you those records at the moment, and I've got them highlighted, so let's use a combination of options. So let's say I want to see the inactive records only. I'll pop into filter, and I'll do where, and I think, is it just called inactive flag? Yes, it is. So inactive flag is the field. I'll do condition, and I'm going to say yes. So I'll click apply, and there they are. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and reactivate all those records simultaneously. So what I'll do is I'll click swap to select them. I'm going to go into the batch changes option. You may have that listed as a separate icon at the top. You don't get batch changes as you're on the essentials level of the software. So if you're on standard or professional, you will have batch changes. So we choose batch changes. We've got the inactive flag. Now, generally, if for something like that, you're probably going to need to select it and then deselect it. So it recognizes you've made a change. Click save. Yes to that prompt. Excuse me, and you can see, if I clear that these records are no longer flagged as being inactive. So it's just blank. If I remove my filter, we're just back to where we were. So hopefully that answers that question for you there, Jenny. As long as you're on standard or the professional levels of the software, if you're not sure what you're on, it should tell you essentially at the top. It'll say either Sage 50 Accounts Essentials. If you're on the standard level, it just says Sage 50 Accounts followed by your company name. And obviously, if you're on professional, it mentions that. So it either needs to just say Sage 50 Accounts or professional for you to have access to that batch changes option. Emma, you mentioned there, do you have to use the asterisk or $ in the filters? Can you use them in the search bar? The thing with the asterisk, where the likes of the dollar, for instance, the likes of the dollar is you're searching for specific text. So if you were using filter and I wanted to search for, let's say I was searching in the name for any records that contain the word golf, for instance, I could do filter where account name is equal to $golf. I don't need to do that on the search box at the top. I can just search for golf and it will automatically do that. It's looking for that string of text anywhere in any of the fields. You can use the asterisk if you want though. That still works in the same way, I believe. So if I did asterisk golf and search, it doesn't find anything. So by using the asterisk and the word golf, it's looking in all of those fields, and it must end in the word golf. If I did asterisk golf asterisk, then that one doesn't, it's not working in that one. It does work in the main filters, but it's probably unlikely that you're going to use the asterisk or the wildcards in there, but you can use it to a certain extent. But you tend to find, because it's quick search, you don't need to do that. But again, have a play with that, Emma. See what you see. Get used to it. Have a play around with that and see if you can get at the information you want. Any other questions at all? You can't do any harm either just by filtering your lists. To remove your quick search, you just click the little sort of trash can icon. To remove your filter, you've got this little filter icon where you can switch it on and off. And remember, it only impacts on your list. So if you want to get back to where you were, just make sure it says, you want it to say all records at the top here. It'll tell you how many records you have in total in that area as well. But have a play around with it. If you get stuck, you're not sure about something, just drop me an email, reply to any of your webinar emails. That will be addressed to myself. Right, okay, we'll end the webinar just at that point. Apologies for the overrun. We always get, depends. Sometimes it just depends on the questions we get, and we go off track a little bit here and there. So we've had the odd question along the way, which I've just sort of tried to include. So hopefully you found that useful. As I say, if you've got any feedback for us, give us a score, pop it on the survey. If you can take a minute to do that, always appreciated. We'll end the webinar just at that point, though. Many thanks for coming along. Watch out for your follow-up email. Get yourself registered for loads more sessions, particularly the corrections ones. So gain the knowledge, get the skills, and hopefully if you do have any problems going forward, you'll have a good idea of how to correct that. There's nothing worse than being sat there and thinking, ooh, what do I do now? Those sessions should enlighten you a little bit as to your options when you're in that sort of position. Right, get yourself registered, and hopefully I'll see you soon. Many thanks.